Here are the notes about the scientific method, a guide to scientific problem solving. So for those of you that will be doing a science fair experiment, I expect you to be doing your science experiment just the way this is written out for you. The 6 different steps to the scientific method. Number 1, state the problem. You're going to decide what it is that you want to figure out in your experiment. Number 2, gather information. You have to do some research about whatever your experiment's going to be about. Number 3, form a hypothesis, saying what you think is going to happen when you actually do your experiment. Number 4, testing the hypothesis. What is actually going on in the experiment? You're going to put to the test your hypothesis. Analyze the data. You're going to look at your results and see what happened. And then number 6, state an inference. You're going to say what your results mean. Stating the problem starts with an observation that leads to questioning. Maybe one day you're outside and you're watching your grass grow in your lawn and you wonder, well, what makes my grass grow? There's a problem. Gathering information. By researching your problem and reading previous works, you have to do some research about whatever the topic is that you want to cover. Forming a hypothesis, a possible explanation or solution to a problem. It's also known as an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Your hypothesis should always be written in the form of an if-then statement. For the purposes of what we're going to do in earth science, you can write it as an if-then statement. If you go to college, they're not going to want to see an if-then statement in your scientific papers. Testing a hypothesis. Experiments using variables, controls, and constants. And then the definition of each of those words. Variables. You have the independent, the variable that you, the experimenter, change. I change the independent variable. Independent. Independent starts with I. And then the dependent, the variable that responds to the change. So the dependent changes based upon what you have changed as the independent. Controls. Standard for comparing experimental effects. The control is the thing that does not get the experiment done on it. If you're coloring different types of water, then just plain water that came straight out of the tap and doesn't have any color, that's your control. Not all experiments have a control, but all good experiments will have a control. Constants. The things that remain the same. Constant means the same. So these things are what does not get changed in the experiment. Analysis of data. Remember to take all of your data into consideration when analyzing the experiment. If you get results that you don't think are correct, you can't just throw them out. You have to keep them in there because maybe that's telling you something important. State an inference. Make an assumption based on your results. After many experiments and repeated trials, scientists will reach a conclusion. When you're stating an inference, you're saying what your results actually mean. Stating a conclusion should always refer back to your results. The hypothesis was or was not confirmed by the data because. If your hypothesis was confirmed, you need to say, well, what in the results tells you that your hypothesis was confirmed? You have to cite why it is that you think whatever it is that you think.